Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can probably see from the title of this video is going to be very different to the stuff that I usually put up. I have covered a video on this topic before, 2 years ago, if you guys want to go and check that out as well. I basically did speak about Black Lives Matter and the Stephen Lawrence documentary. If you haven't watched that documentary, I would highly suggest you go and watch it to be a bit more educated about racism within the UK, because a lot of people keep seeming to think that the UK is really innocent when in fact we are not. And a lot of people think, oh, okay, now that the US are doing protests, that is the same reason why UK are doing it and they're jumping on a bandwagon. No, we are not. The reason we are now deciding to put power into our hands as well and making this an issue in the UK is because finally US are doing something about it by doing these protests, and we've decided that yes, actually black people's voices do need to be heard within the UK as well. We are not innocent. I don't know how many times I'm going to repeat that throughout this video. It's going to be a lot, but UK are not innocent by any chance. There have been multiple deaths by the hands of police. There have been acid attacks, there have been stabbings. Just because it is not as viral or worldwide like the US deaths does not mean that the UK aren't doing anything. Don't get me wrong, the US obviously they've got it very, very bad, and personally, I can't imagine how it feels like to be a black person living in the US and having to think about every time they leave their house will they come back. That is just, it's just soul crushing, honestly. For those of you who still don't believe me and think that I'm exaggerating about the amount of people that have died within the UK, I wanted to list a few. So there is Jimmy Mubenga, who died in 2010 on a Heathrow runway because he was restrained by 3 immigration officers. There's 20-year-old Rayson Charles, who lost his life by being restrained by a police officer, and he was choking on a package of caffeine and paracetamol in his mouth. There is Sarah Reed, Sheku Bayo, and the names go on and on. So if you definitely did not realise how many deaths there are in the UK, please go and read and go and educate yourself, because you would be amazed at the amount of people that have died at the hands of the police. I wanted to make an example of Ebeli Mujinga. I hope I'm saying her name right. She was basically working at one of our underground stations as a ticket inspector when a white guy who had coronavirus spat on her. And as a result, she ended up dying. Now he's alive. He's not been charged. Why? Why has he not been charged when that was an act of racism? Like, he was discriminating her. He was singling her out because she was black. Now, if this is not a prime example of the things that are wrong within the UK, then I'm not sure what is. Changing the way racists think and educating them, it starts with us. It starts with the younger generation. So these protests, they are raising awareness for the situation within the UK as well as supporting the US. And I think it's great that this is happening finally. I wanted to talk about my personal experience with racism in the UK to hopefully shed some light that, you know, there are different forms of racism. It's not just being physically abusive, but verbally, there is a lot of damage that occurs by doing that as well. I remember walking with my primary school friends who were all white, and I actually live opposite a Tesco, a small Tesco, and we had white teenage boys that always used to kind of sit outside the Tesco supermarket where the gates were. And I remember we were walking past. There was a bunch of us, but obviously I was the only brown girl. And we walked past, and they actually said "Paki." Now, at the time, I didn't know that was an offensive word. For me, that was more like, I don't get it because I'm not Pakistani, I'm Sri Lankan. And I didn't actually hear it. So my friend said, "Oh, did you just hear that?" And I said, "No, what happened?" And she said, "Oh, that guy just called you Paki." And I said, "Oh, but I'm not, I'm Sri Lankan." She said, "Oh, I don't know why he called you that." And I said, "Oh, neither did I." And I was really confused. And I wasn't going to go up to them and say anything because I was 7 and I wasn't trying to get beaten up. And I knew at a young age that if I said anything wrong to white boys, I just knew that something would happen. So I didn't want to put myself in that situation, so I didn't. And I guess another thing is that Halloween was never really fun for us. So a lot of people, for them, Halloween is so fun. It's the trick-or-treating time. It's the time you get to dress up. For me, personally. Yeah, I did the trick-or-treating stuff, but as a family, our house was always the target during Halloween. And back in the day, I don't really think it happens anymore, but there was a lot of people that would go to supermarkets and buy eggs, but they've stopped the purchase of eggs during Halloween because egging was the thing back then. Our house used to be repeatedly egged every year for Halloween, and my dad would spend the next day um, after Halloween basically cleaning the windows on a ladder and stuff because our house would be egged that much. I remember they used to put eggs through our letterbox and all kinds of jazz. Winter time, if there was snow, we would have snowballs chucked out our window, and that's purely just for the fact that we're the only brown family in the area. We're not anymore. There's a lot of brown people that have come now, and those people who were doing those things have grown up, so we no longer have those things happening to us. But we've had our doorbell ripped off multiple times, which is why if you come to my house and you're probably like, why do I always have to knock? Why don't you just get a doorbell? This is the reason why. It's because we used to have one, and then these white boys would keep coming and ripping them off. So we no longer have a doorbell for that reason. It's multiple things that used to happen to us. I remember particularly one time I was quite young and I was sleeping in the back seat of my mum's car, and near our house there was a park, and my mum, as she was turning in, bless her, she had just cleaned the car, got it valeted because she was going to sell it, and these people in the park basically had one of those pellet guns and shot at our car, and the glass actually fell on top of me in the back seat. Luckily I wasn't hurt, but it was all over my face and my body, and my sister was screaming her head off and she ran out and was chasing after them. The police got involved, and they didn't do much because it's the police and we're a minority. What are they going to do, really? And I think that's just an example of the kind of racism that does happen in the UK. It is happening, and people need to realise that. I mean, I was the only brown girl in my year growing up, from year 7 to 11 in secondary school. Technically, I wasn't the only brown girl. There is another brown girl who is in denial. I say is because she still is in denial that she's brown. And I think the reason that people are in denial, they don't want to admit the race that they are, embrace the culture, is because they want to be able to fit in. Because in the UK, when you do acknowledge that you are a minority or you're not white, people will act different around you. Like, there. Don't get me wrong. In my school, there are many white people that are absolutely lovely, and I still speak to. But some people, they pretend they're nice. They pretend they're not racist to your face, and then an incident happens, and it circulates throughout the school or it's on BBC News, and there's obviously talk about it, and you really see who the racists are because you will see how they're talking about the situation. And that for me is always an eye opener because I know who the real racists are when those situations occur. Teachers are racist. I mean, it's always the people that are in power that do take the piss. And I think we need to start educating people about racism in schools because it's not enough. People are not being educated enough. People are growing up thinking it's okay to have this racist banter kind of culture. Now, don't get me wrong, for me, I don't get offended anymore because I'm used to it. It's so normal for me. It's been normalised that I genuinely do not see anything wrong with it. But I know that's where it stems from, and we need to cut that out when we're younger because I know a lot of people that, um, they have this indirect racism comments that they say through banter, and they think it's okay because, we're laughing with them. And we're doing that because we're trying to normalize it to make it seem like, yeah, okay, you're acknowledging that I'm brown or you're acknowledging that I'm black, and we're okay with that because you still want to be our friend and you still want to talk to us and those kind of things. But we shouldn't have to be like that. Why are we allowing people that aren't our race to be racist to us just for the sake of fitting in? And I just think it needs to be stopped. We can't have this racist banter. It is microaggression, and it's not just the racist banter, it's the teachers that look at the register, pause at our name, and can't actually be bothered to try and pronounce it, but they can pronounce names like Siobhan, Neve. I mean, last time I checked, those names on paper look very hard. They look like, what? How do you even say that? But they come across my name, they don't want to pronounce it, they don't want to try to pronounce it, and they just then try to be funny about it. The amount of times that I've heard teachers in my school call me Vahita, and the whole class is laughing, and I've felt obliged to laugh, but inside I'm actually hurt because I'm like, this is very embarrassing. Like, people are laughing at the fact that my name is Fajita when it's not even anything remotely close to that. It's another reason why I've shortened down my name. My name is Vijitha, and I actually quite love my name. Like, I genuinely think it's a really nice name. But when I say Vijitha, for me, it feels like I'm saying someone else's name because I'm so used to not saying my full name. And I think, can you imagine being in a position where it feels weird to say your full name because you've had to shorten it down for so many years so that people can pronounce it because they're that lazy? My nickname is Vij. It is 3 letters. And I find that when I'm still introducing myself and saying, yeah, my name is Vij, I've shortened it down so it's easy for you to say, they're still like, Fidge? What did you say? Bidge? It's 3 letters. I think this is the problem with the UK. And if you think that the UK is innocent, then you've got another thing coming. Because if you do think that, then you're probably the racist. You're probably the people that are doing it, so you don't think there's anything wrong with it. Not okay for us to allow this to go on any longer. The older generation, they are racist, but it's up to the next generation to fix that issue. Even within the Asian community, we have caste system. We single out different races because they're not the same as us. And I think within the Asian community, there is a lot of change that needs to occur. It's disgusting the amount of racism that we have in the Asian community against Muslims, against different religions, against black people. I mean, within the brown community, we all know that we're not allowed to bring home black boys because they are seen as not they're not seen as husband material. Muslims are not seen as husband material. And that is because there's so much racism instilled against these particular races. And I think it's come to a point where we need to change that in the next generation. We need to show our kids that all races are the same. We are only one race, and that is the human race. And there is nothing else besides from that. There is no brown, black, white. We are all one colour. We all bleed the same colour. So why do we need to put a name? Why do we need to single each other out into a specific race and categorize them? We need to stop doing that. That will only change once we change. People, they're not seeing an issue, and they keep saying that, well, why you keep talking about Black Lives Matter, all lives matter? And this really pisses me off, because how ignorant can you be to not think that we don't care about all lives? We are not saying all lives don't matter. We are saying right now, Black lives matter the most, because we are all acting like Black lives don't matter. George Floyd is a prime example. Since this George Floyd's death happened in the US, I saw something absolutely disgusting, and this was called the George Floyd Challenge. Now, I'm going to pop some pictures up on here whilst I'm talking, because I don't know if everyone is aware or has seen this, but it's actually, I can't even deal with how people think this is okay to do. Now, so currently there is a challenge that is occurring, and it's basically 2 people, and one pretends to be George Floyd while the other person kneels on that person's neck. And I just think, this person died. George Floyd died at the hands of a racist. He did not want to die. That guy, the police officer, Derek Chauvin, he could have stopped. He could have stopped kneeling on George Floyd's neck. He could have stopped. He could have prevented that death. And then the fact that there are people, normal civilians, taking the piss out of his death, mate, you guys are going straight to hell. Well, I hope you are anyway. These pictures just show what is the problem with the world. This cannot, it cannot happen. Enough is enough. We need to draw the line in the sand. Like, we need to put a stop to this now. We cannot allow this to go on any further. We cannot allow more people to die, because it's just too much, and we need to stop doing this. Like, people cannot be living in fear every day of their lives because they're a certain colour. The fact that black parents have to educate their black children when they're so young, coaching them what to say when a police officer comes up to them, telling them to surrender, telling them not to reach for their ID because they might get shot. Can you imagine being a little kid and knowing that you could die even as a small child just for being black? They're living in fear every day. This is not what the world is about. We should not be condoning this. People should not be condoning this. We should not let the racists win. So if you do want to do your part, I'm going to put some links in the description box below where you can donate to certain certain funds, certain charities, and sign petitions. I'm going to link it all in the description box below so you can do your bit. There is new things popping up in the Asian community as well to support Black people and to support Asian community, to really raise awareness to the racism that's happening in the world. So please look at my description box below. And I'm sorry if I have offended you in any way by saying the stuff that I have in this video, but this is just my personal opinion, and genuinely I feel like it needs to stop. And that's what I'm going to say on this matter.